Hello Indie Game Fan, let's take a look at some upcoming Souls-like titles, including some AAA games, beginning with Perennial Order, a top-down boss rush title that has you facing off against plant-like bosses, which doesn't sound scary but does have some awesome designs to go along with the grim dark world. A title new to the channel is Churn, one that is inspired by Slavic mythology, which we are beginning to see a lot more of following the success of titles like The Witcher, where this isometric title does look a little visually simple with a lack of details on enemies, but the combat does still appear to be quite challenging. Deathbound comes to us from a Brazilian studio, and despite being rather quiet overall, they are active on Twitter and were actively recruiting animators as recently as October this year. What this does mean, however, is that it may still be a ways off from release, but it seems promising enough to keep an eye on. It has many of the genre tropes where you're facing off against an evil cult and the Church of Death, playing as the prisoner of 1,000 faces, so they seem to have gotten the lore and world building parts right. But the most interesting part is that this world rolls from technological ruins, which could mean some sci-fi elements as well. I've had my eye on Deadlink for quite a while, since it looks like a very different type of Souls-like, where you would instantly notice the vertical level design and the almost top-down camera angle. It has you ascending this vertical structure, killing enemies and harvesting their ink to print weapons, where jumping or falling down the levels seems par for the course, and I love how they committed to the verticality idea and ran with it. Surprisingly, I've noticed a bunch of Chinese and Korean studios trying to make their own Souls-like titles, where a comparatively fewer number of larger American or European studios are doing so, where Wuchang Fallen Feathers is one such example. It is set in Imperial China and looks impressive, but in my opinion, it's going a little too far in being inspired by the FromSoft titles, especially Sekiro in terms of the UI and overall vibe. Not helping is that the action isn't as fluid, but again, it's still early days with this, with a planned release for 2024, so let's see how this progresses. Another very classically designed title is 10th Fierce, down to the "you died" message when you die, so it's fair to say that this is again Dark Souls in all but name. It is not quite Elden Ring of course, but looks fairly impressive, where there does appear to be a martial artist build which uses punches and kicks, with the sword and board, axes, magic and more being options as well. We are taking on the 7 demon lords and their minions. A pretty sick looking 2.5D Souls-like title that I have my eye on is Valester, recently completing its Kickstarter campaign successfully, but it was for a rather small budget, all things considered. One look at this and you will instantly see that it is essentially 2D Dark Souls, even more so than titles like Swords and Sanctuary due to the art style, where it is interesting that they play with depth in the level design, although actions do primarily appear to be taking place on a 2D plane. I think that this looks impressive, where my main concern with all 2D Souls-likes is dodging, since your options are more limited with the removal of one dimension, but they do appear to have the world and enemy design on point, so I'll be looking forward to this. I chanced upon The Moon Hell when doing research for this video, where they primarily have an atmospheric trailer with some bits of action at the end, looking like another gorgeous grimdark Souls-like title, where it's from a team of 2 Ukrainian developers, with their unique hook being a non-target combat system, which I assume to mean a lack of lock-on, which could be interesting. A fantastic looking title that I've my eye on is Vapor World Over the Mind, a 2D Souls-like title that sure looks like Swords and Sanctuary, coming to us from a Korean developer. It is set in a never-ending nightmare as our hero traverses through human minds, which of course means plenty of potential for equally nightmarish creatures. It initially had a release date planned for December this year, but that has been pushed to Q1 2023 with a planned Kickstarter campaign as well. A game that I chanced upon during the Steam Next Festival is Stencil, a Souls-like RPG that looks impressive, especially considering that this is the work of a solo developer. It does appear to be very Bloodborne-like in nature, where you're the ultimate monster-killing assassin and have to explore a maze-like city to do your work. The good news is that this got a release date in January, so fingers crossed this turns out well. Another long in development title is Mortal Right, one that did also conclude its Kickstarter campaign recently, just managing to scrape past the finish line, so hopefully that gives them the runway to make the game. While it does have Souls-like combat, apparently this will support up to 5-player co-op, which is an odd number, and is somehow a roguelite as well, so I'm not sure how this will work structurally, but hey, that's a problem for the developers to figure out, and hopefully for us to enjoy down the line. Another promising 2D Souls-like title is Rot in the Porcelain Dream, one that does hit all of those genre tropes with the grimdark setting, but I'm waiting for more details on this. We only have a cinematic trailer for The Lords of the Fallen, so I won't dwell on it too long, but this reboot of Lords of the Fallen from 2014 looks promising, where the original was a decent enough Dark Souls clone, so let's see what they do with this. One of the best parts of the increasing accessibility of game development tools is that we do get developers from all over the world, where Odin is an impressive looking title that draws upon Sardinian folklore.
To challenge the will of the tower.
If you are not aware, Sardinia is an autonomous region of Italy, and excuse my ignorance, I've never heard about it prior to this game, so it's 2 for 1 with this, getting to learn more about their culture and to play a beautiful Souls-like title as well. It's a lot more colourful than expected, which gives it its charm, with decent looking combat as well. The long-in-development Chrono Sword has also been on my watchlist, where it's an isometric pixel art title that looks fairly impressive, with an interconnected world to explore and plenty of enemies to fight. As the name suggests, this does have a time-travelling element, moving between the past and present, which I assume will feed into the exploration part of the game. While it still does not have a Steam store page, according to its Kickstarter campaign, it should be releasing in the early part of 2023, so subscribe to the channel and I'll let you know when it does. A newly announced title that got a lot of attention is Blight Survival, where IGN's video on this has already gotten 2.8 million views in the past 2 weeks or so, being a very grim medieval title we are facing off against zombies once again. I really do wish it was something else, but zombies are your stand-in for humanoid enemies without flouting the too bloody or too violent parts of ESRB or PEGI ratings, but regardless, this still looks pretty promising.
Stop warming your balls and get over here! Hey, are you listening to me?
Sure, I am.
You're hearing me, you ain't listening.
Leave off, Granger.
Look at him, or I'll make you.
Boy, calm down, will you?
Something to note is that the camera is pulled in closer than usual, which is a little disorienting when spinning the camera around, and like Mortal Right covered earlier, is supposed to be a roguelite as well, but does look like a high potential title to keep an eye on. I covered the Kickstarter campaign of Sang the Desert Blade, which, I'm not being dismissive, sure looks like a furry, hyperlight drifter where you play as an anthropomorphic desert dog returning home to seek out your kin. Our heroine is a bloodseer with the ability to see future deaths, including her own, which led to her exile many moons ago, but something terrible has befallen the land which has led to her return. It does also have inspiration from A Link to the Past in addition to Dark Souls, where the stamina-based combat looks like a challenge with great pixel art as well. I love my 2D Souls-likes, which is why Obsidian Legion gets a mention here, having a fantastic look which I hope will turn out well. Surprise! One of the unlikelier Souls-likes is another Crab's Treasure, coming to us from developer Aggro Crab, who were the makers of the action roguelite Going Under. You play as a hermit crab and are exploring the underwater kingdom on a quest to search for your original shell, which got repossessed. I like how weird this is, where, given the pedigree, I'm fairly certain that this will at least be decent, scoring points for being unique. A very curious entry is Glaciated, coming to us from a Japanese team and is set 65 million years after mankind, where you play as a creature that has evolved from birds, finding a way to survive in this new underwater world. Sharks are still a thing, as are all sorts of sea monsters, but I'm very curious about the underwater combat with a fantastic look as well.
What worth is a song deprived of its end? And what worth have you, maskless one? A verse of an unfinished poem? Be the force of change in this wretched farce past due. Become its curtain call.
A game that was revealed at Tokyo Game Show is Inotria: The Last Song, another fantastic looking title that most interestingly comes to us from some developers that previously worked on The Witcher. You will notice the vibrant colours and bright environments, which is not typical of a Souls-like game, but that is intentionally the case, where the developers are trying to show off Italian folklore and culture, with the colours used being associated with the Italian summer, where as a result, it is a self-styled Summer Souls game, where the almost Venetian masks also play a critical role here.
Can you hear me? I hope this reaches you. This city is falling apart. Chaos,
Chaos.
madness, death. And there might be no going back. But you can change that. It depends on the choice you make. Truth or lie.
Another Korean title that got the attention of many of us is Lies of P, one that, most interestingly, taps upon Pinocchio of all things.
Might be asking too much of you. But I don't have a choice.
However, it did make headlines for all the wrong reasons, since there is a stark similarity to Bloodborne, probably unintentional since I assume a bunch of the developers played that, where the animations and even transforming weapons were a telltale sign.
Please, help me. Finally, we meet, son. The stage is set.
However, the almost steampunk-like setting and the dark fairy tale vibe is impressive, where, similar to games like Alice Madness Returns, it's always fun to see how the developers translate these characters into their game.
Confront your fate.
Despite claims of plagiarism, it does look very impressive, so hopefully this is a better Steel Rising and should be out next year as well.
You can lean on me if you want.
Protect.
Fulfill.
Indie games in the top 10 include the fantastic looking Bleak Faith Forsaken, another classically grimdark title, which is one of the more interesting settings. This takes place in an ever-expanding megastructure known as the Omni Structure, which shifts and evolves through the game, where there are giant flying serpentine monsters circling it, which you can ride on, looking all kinds of awesome. I'm not sure who you play as or what you're supposed to be doing, where I guess figuring that out is part of the charm of such games, where despite being quiet on Kickstarter, they did release this new teaser trailer in October, and with an initial planned release of 2022, I do hope that 2023 will be the year of release. title that continues to impress is Black Myth: Wukong, coming to us from a fairly large Chinese developer and has you playing as the Monkey King himself. The snippets of gameplay shown off so far have already garnered a lot of attention, where it is fairly true to the source material in terms of the character's abilities, including the staff that can transform in size to abilities like shapeshifting. The various beasts and monsters shown off, including a dragon, are impressive looking, possibly being the Souls-like title whenever it releases. For as impressive as the previous title was, I've chosen this game as the top pick due to its pedigree, and because it has a penciled-in release date in March, coming to us from Team Ninja, who also made the excellent Nioh, which means that they should know what they're doing with Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, looking to be like Sekiro but in a dark fantasy world based on the Chinese Three Kingdoms period. You can watch this video for more grimdark titles.